Okay. Hello, everybody. Hello. It is Friday. It is another Love Your Liver live stream. Glad to be here. Happy you're here. So, I kind of have covered the topics we're going to cover today in terms of vitamin A used as a vaccine adjuvant and vitamin A used as chemotherapy. Is there an echo? There shouldn't be. My Wi-Fi might be a little slow this morning, so that might be part of the echo. Okay, cool. So Will says no echo, so yeah, could be other way. Anyway, let's go into, because I'm working on this in another big Twitter thread that is in process right now. So yeah, adjuvants. Let's go into vaccines as adjuvants. So what I'm going to show you here, I did a study the other day. I mean, a search the other day. This is a very specific search. I'm going to put the link in the comments. So you guys, vaccine adjuvants. Vaccine adjuvants are put there, as they say, to stimulate the immune system. And what you should, if you don't know this already, the old adjuvants, still used sometimes, but the older adjuvants are mercury and aluminum. Obviously, things that are good for us, right? And that's sarcasm if you didn't know. So here's the search I just did. $14 results for retinoic acid used as an adjuvant. Retinoic acid, if you did not know, is what they call, it's all trans retinoic acid, also sold to people, as I'm seeing people discuss in the comments, Retin-A and tretinoin. Tretinoin is the generic name, Retin-A is the brand name. Fancy technical name is all trans retinoic acid, and in most of the research, they just refer to retinoic acid. That's what they call all trans retinoic acid. That they just call it retinoic acid for the most part. So, retinoic acid has been studied and used in humans as an adjuvant. Now, here's a funny thing. Considering that the recent special vaccines contained lipid nanoparticles, or they were nano-encapsulated. Well, here's a paper, nano-encapsulated retinoic acid as a safe tolerogenic adjuvant for intranasal vaccination against cutaneous leishmaniasis. So they're already giving people retinoic acid as an adjuvant. Remember, that's now in the class with aluminum and mercury as adjuvants. And they're giving it as a nasal vaccine, encapsulated nanoparticle lipids, retinoic acid. Okay. Now, somebody out there is going to go, but retinoic acid, that's synthetic vitamin A. That's not natural. Okay, so we're just going to put that to bed right now. So let's go. Let me find this paper. I'm going to show you that when they measure retinoic acid in the system, let me find. Why am I not finding this study? Let me find it. Oh, come on. Now I guess I got to go to PubMed. Okay, here's the paper. So this is why I want to show you guys. Anyone who ever argues that natural vitamin A and synthetic vitamin A are somehow different and that they act differently in the body, understand that the scientists, first of all, to discover the so-called vitamin A, they used the same chemistry. So remember, if they're going to make vitamin A in a lab and they're going to find it or discover it in plants and animals, they use the exact same science. They can't tell the difference scientifically between natural retinoic acid and synthetic retinoic acid, or retinol for that matter. And here's what I want to show you. Here's this paper. Listen very carefully. Modulation of plasma all-trans retinoic acid concentrations by the consumption of carotenoid-rich vegetables. Modulation means it's changing. Plasma really means they're talking about the blood levels. All-trans retinoic acid is retinoic acid, what we're talking about. And consuming carotenoids, beta-carotene rich vegetables, particularly carrots is what we're going to talk about, raises the levels of all-trans retinoic acid in the blood. I'm sure you could figure out that if you took Retin-A or you took tretinoin, whether it was orally or by the skin, it's going to raise your blood levels too. But they're not talking about people who are taking Retin-A right here. They're talking about people who are simply eating vegetables, okay? Did they do a synthetic versus natural analysis, or did all of it come up under the same analysis? So what they said here, I'm gonna shorten this here. The study shows that consumption of carrot juice containing high concentrations of the provitamin A carotenoid beta-carotene results in strong, significantly increased, almost double plasma concentrations of all trans retinoic acid. Okay? So I want you to understand that when people are eating vitamin A, natural vitamin A, it's turning into Retin-A in your body. It's turning into a vaccine adjuvant in your body. It's turning into what we will go over next, chemotherapy in your body. You know how people talk about carrot juice and cancer? They're taking chemo. They're just drinking it. The thought of carrot juice now is absolutely makes me just nauseous. Absolutely. Anyway, so vaccine adjuvants use retinoic acid. Let me get my other thread on Twitter. The thread where I show in the research that all the forms of vitamin A are the same toxicity when given the same amounts when we're talking about natural versus synthetic. Natural and synthetic forms of vitamin A, when you are talking about the exact same form, whether you're talking about retinol from made in a lab, or whether you're talking about retinol from cod liver oil, or whether you're talking about retinoic acid made in a lab, or you're talking about retinoic acid made in your own body from vegetables, or any of that stuff, it is the same toxicity. I present tons of evidence of this from the research in that Twitter thread. No one has shown any evidence that natural vitamin A is safer or non-toxic versus synthetic. No one has ever presented that research to me, whereas I present this research showing that they are exactly the same in humans and animals. It's been known since the 1950s. Okay. So we have vaccine adjuvants. Let's go into chemotherapy. So my favorite site for this is a site called Chemocare.com. Oh wait, I forgot. Let me do another one. Let me do one more thing just to show you that when you eat vitamin A, you do make Accutane too. You make Accutane in your body when you eat vitamin A. You know, both Retin-A and Accutane are used as chemotherapy. And there was another paper, I believe, talking about using Accutane as a vaccine adjuvant. So, good stuff. Okay, here it is. 13-cis-retinoic acid, which is Accutane, is an endogenous compound in human serum. You need to know some of the words in there. 13-cis-retinoic acid means Accutane. Endogenous means created within the human body. Created within the human body. So what that means is, that carrot juice or the spinach or whatever, or the cod liver oil or the liver is turning into, some of it is turning into Accutane, some of it is turning into Retin-A. If you've seen the side effects lists of these things, folks, you don't want that crap in your system. So, and so this study where they're saying 13-cis-retinoic acid is an endogenous compound in human serum, there's going to be people out there who actually are going to argue that natural Accutane is okay and synthetic Accutane is not. Could you actually imagine somebody professing that argument, putting that argument out there? Insanity. They're wrong. They are quite simply absolutely wrong. So we now know that when you eat carotenoid-rich foods, which is plant vitamin A, or retinoid-rich foods, I could go and show you how you can take retinol palmitate, the synthetic supplement, and it'll increase your retinoic acid. I could show you vegetables, increase it. I could show you cod liver oil, increases retinoic acid. I could show you that all of these increase retinoic acid. The people who say that you need tons of ceruloplasmin, based on one study on retinoic acid in cells, didn't look at the chickens where the more vitamin A made less ceruloplasmin because they didn't look in real things. It's called the duration paradox. We'll get into that some other time. So we now know about adjuvants. Let's go into Chemocare. So let's do, I'm on the Chemocare website. Here's the first link I'm going to put up. 13-cis-retinoic acid, Accutane. Oh, wait, I got to click on, I can't use that. I got to click on the actual link. So let me get all of them. Panretin, Alitretinoin. And here's the cool thing. When you know about Chemocare, when you know about chemotherapy, guess what? One of their favorite things to mix with retinoic acid is arsenic. Arsenic trioxide given with retinoic acid. Like birds of a feather flock together. They're just combining poisons. And people take this thinking that it's, where in the world other than the cancer world do we start to think that arsenic is a good thing and that retinoic acid is a good thing? So let me get this. Sorry, I did a sinus rinse this morning. And I'm still, for those of you who have done sinus rinses, you can leak a little bit after that. So there's retinoic acid. There's Accutane as chemotherapy. Okay, I just put that link in there. Here is Retin-A, tretinoin as chemotherapy. Here is Panretin, also known as Alitretinoin. I'll just use the Alitretinoin link. Alitretinoin is 9-cis-retinoic acid. When you eat vitamin A, it turns into the three major retinoic acids it turns into: 13-cis-retinoic acid, all-trans retinoic acid, 9-cis-retinoic acid, which is only used as chemotherapy, Alitretinoin. I just put that link in there. Okay. And there is another one. Oh, Targretin or whatever, however you pronounce it. I don't really care how the pharma cartel wants me to pronounce it. This is a super strong retinoid. This one's totally synthetic. It's not found anywhere in the human body. I'm pretty sure. No, this is Alitretinoin. Okay, Panretin. Oh no, I was talking about Targretin. Yeah, beta-carotene. The generic drug name is beta-carotene. Medication is classified as a retinoid. So you now know, and can you believe that there will seriously be people who are going to argue that eating carrots is good because they turn into chemotherapy. There are people out there who argue this. They're like, oh, well, if carrot juice is chemotherapy, that makes it a good thing. The level of stupidity today is just, they prey on it. They prey on it. They prey on people not being able to put two and two together. People will be like, well, I'm going to go the natural route. I'm not going to do chemotherapy. And then I say carrot juice turns into chemotherapy. And they go, well, that's a good thing. It turns into chemotherapy. That means it kills cancer. That means it kills you too, brainiac. Oh, another funny thing about, wait. I think I've been over this before. Wait. This is the best one. Here we go. I really want you to look at this one. This is the page on the World Health Organization website. The World Health Organization, right? They're our friends, right? They love us. They want us all to live long, healthy lives. Okay. No. This page, I want you to look carefully at this page. It says, the very big title on it says, vaccination schedule for vitamin A. The vaccine scheduler table summarizes the current vaccination schedule for young children, adolescents, and adults for vitamin A. The data is updated regularly with the most recent official country reporting collected through the WHO/UNICEF joint reporting process. The vaccination schedule for vitamin A. Don't they name vaccines after the disease that they address? Right? What other injection of a vitamin do they call an immunization or a vaccine? Why would you need to be like, right? If vaccines supposedly work, no. If they actually worked, they named them after the disease. So if they name a vaccine after vitamin A, is vitamin a disease? We're just following the pattern, right? It's just pattern recognition. That's what I just do all day. They call it, like, if you get B12, they call it a B12 shot or a B12 injection. They don't call it a B12 vaccine. You following me? Some people say, oh, that's because they give it with the other vaccine. That doesn't make any sense. They'll say because they give shots of vitamin A with the other shots. That doesn't, why would you change what you call it? It's just an injection. I was the king of B12 shots in Tucson for a while. There was one day I gave 40 B12 shots in a day. I was running Groupons. I was running Living Social. Like, it was terrible. Any of you who are in business know that the people who are running the Groupons and the people who are buying Living Social and Groupons all day long, they're not good customers. They're not. But anyway, I used to give those all the time. Why would I ever call it a vaccine? It's not a vaccine. Vaccines are named after diseases, but the World Health Organization has named vitamin A injections a vaccine. So, just a quick intro today. So we have retinoic acid, all trans retinoic acid, 13-cis retinoic acid, Retin-A and Accutane are made from the vitamin A that people eat in your body into retinoic acids. This is indisputable. Scientists cannot tell the difference between natural and synthetic. I've shown research that shows that they are both toxic when you give the exact same form of vitamin A in the exact same amounts. I posted that Twitter thread to show that they are exactly the same toxicity. I've shown, I haven't done this here yet on this channel, but I've shown research that carotenoids are toxic. I've shown research that retinol is toxic. I've shown research that retinol esters are toxic. And if you don't know retinoic acids are toxic, I can't help you. So I've shown that every single form of vitamin A is toxic in various ways. That's on the research forum. And I'll probably do a Twitter thread on each one of those. And then we know, for those of you who are, let's say you don't like shots and you think that shots might have a nefarious intent behind them. And they have adjuvants added. Did you know? Oh, here's the other thing. You need to go look up autoimmune syndrome induced by adjuvants. Here, let me get a good link for you. What they're saying, I don't know if you guys remember on that last, it was a couple live streams ago, well, probably like 5 or 6 now, where I went over how autoimmunity is toxicity. Okay. And the funny thing here is, I don't know if you know this, but I've been over another study before where they can induce, they actually would say that in animals, they could give immunizations to cause autoimmunity. They were giving immunizations to cause autoimmunity in animals. What? And then now we have the autoimmune/inflammatory syndrome induced by adjuvants called ASIA. What are adjuvants? Mercury, aluminum, retinoic acid. Are you seeing a pattern here? This is just patterns. I'm so disappointed in everyone who came before me that nobody figured this out. Other than Anthony Mawson and Grant Genereux, I'm just taking it to the next level. Grant really brought the vitamin A toxicity stuff to light, and I will always be forever grateful to him for that. Anthony Mawson figured out the vitamin A connection to cholestasis, toxic bile theory, which is my toxic bile theory is how I'm taking it further. Anthony Mawson is probably not going to put out much work, if ever again. So I get the torch to take this further. Vitamin A is an adjuvant. Autoimmune syndrome induced by adjuvants. I went over in a live stream about how autoimmunity, vitamin A toxicity and autoimmunity are like this. Remember, they couldn't induce celiac disease in people or in the cells. They were trying to create a model of celiac disease in cells. They couldn't do it until they added vitamin A to it. Then we have vitamin A, forms of vitamin A, whether it's carrot juice or whether it's Accutane, Retin-A, or Alitretinoin, used as chemotherapy. If you don't know yet that chemotherapy means poison, I can't help you either. And they like to combine retinoic acid with arsenic. Do you know how they make stronger chemo? Stronger chemo. They just make it more poisonous. So it causes more liver injury. Your liver doesn't put out bile for a while. That's what it does. And then after you've been off chemo for a while, the liver starts pumping out bile again. But now that bile contains chemotherapy. So now you're putting toxic bile with now with extra chemo into your blood. Ooh, looks like my signal's starting to slow down. So now you're pumping out bile with toxic chemo in your blood. And then they wonder why the cancer comes back. The cancer comes back because the bile is the same bile that you had before. But why does it get even worse? Because now you got chemo in it. This is why after every round of chemo, it comes back and it comes back worse. Chemo is the definition of kicking the can down the road. Absolute definition. Anthony Mawson. It's Anthony Mawson. Here, I'll find... I have in the Love Your Liver program, I have assembled all, I think, 35 of his papers on vitamin A and diseases, which I'll go over. Somebody asked about uric acid. Yeah, Ramon asked about it. Ramon with his super chat. He's back. Good to have you back, Ramon. So that's what I got on. That's my topic of the day. Okay. Geez, that was 45 minutes. I thought that was going to be a quick one. I did repeat myself a couple times, but I wanted to make sure that everybody gets it. Remember, there is no difference between natural forms and synthetic forms of vitamin A in terms of toxicity. But yeah, Anthony Mawson is probably done contributing to the cause, sadly. I think he's in his mid-90s. So he was working a long time. He just published a paper on COVID 2 years ago. Let me go find that paper. Oh, wait. Oh, wait. Anthony Mawson wrote a paper connecting COVID and retinoic acid in your blood? Oh my gosh. Well, crazy. How could those be connected? Well, if you don't know toxic bile theory yet, you should go back and watch episode 71 of this live stream, and then you should just watch more of the live streams. Sicknesses like flus and colds are toxic bile leaking into your blood. Toxic bile leaking into your blood contains all the fat-soluble poisons that you've absorbed. It contains copper. It contains vitamin A, which turns into retinoic acid. What a cold or a flu is it's you making yourself sick by dumping toxic bile and it leaks into your system. It's not a virus. It's not viruses. They're not scary. They're deformed proteins that are evidence of toxicity in your system. That's it. The antibodies are evidence of toxicity in your system. I went over that in the autoimmunity episode. Okay. So let me see. There were some things I wanted to, I want to get to the super chats, but there were some questions that I just wanted to hit really quick. Sam's first post was, what would your advice to Accutane survivors regarding supplements that you usually suggest? What order, how, and way to go about it? So Sam, I want to be totally honest here about my experience with Accutane survivors. Of all the people I want to help Accutane survivors the most. The pattern that I have seen and I have experienced is that Accutane survivors want it to be simple and quick. It's not Accutane people. You want to know the people who I see who have the longest recovery time and who are the most complex? Accutane or Retin-A survivors and people who ate crap loads of liver and absolutely made themselves sick as a dog. These are the two hardest people to fix. The Accutane people, as a rule, want it to be quick and easy and just, and then honestly, I've encountered this so many times. They're like, just tell me what to do. I don't want to buy the program. I don't want to read it. I don't want to watch videos. Just tell me what pill to take that I can fix myself with. This has been my experience. Is my experience valid? Yeah. I'm kind of the expert in fixing this stuff. If you're an Accutane survivor and you want to fix this problem, you better settle in, get in the Love Your Liver program, at least, if not work with me, and realize that this is going to be like 3 years, 4 years, 5 years long of work. Whether you decided to take Accutane or not, whether it was your parents, encouraging you, whether it was a dermatologist lying to you about the side effects, whether you wanted it because you didn't like the acne, doesn't really matter how you got liver injured. If you were born with jaundice because your mother took Accutane in her past, it doesn't really matter how we got here. Accutane people are the hardest to fix, and they're often the most sensitive to supplements. And sometimes they might ignore how they feel from things because, right? People are taking Accutane and feeling god-awful, and they're still taking it because they want their acne to go away. I have helped Accutane people. Accutane people need lots of help. And I am far too professional and I care far too much to give simplistic supplement and nutrition advice on this live stream because I can't do it justice. Those of you who are in the Love Your Liver program, you know how much I care and how much detail I put into my supplement guidance. This is why I say this is not a game. Like, we are not here to just play around with supplements. Like, I want you to think about this. Something that people think is a vitamin A. They're just like, oh, I'll just take it for my acne. And it F's them up for life. I don't mess around with supplements like they're just like candy, like they're just not going to hurt you. Maybe they'll fix everything. Here's the thing. If it's going to fix everything you have, it's strong. And if you mess around with strong things, you could mess yourself up. One of my Accutane survivors from Europe, she could barely take a milligram of zinc at the start. A milligram. Most supplements are 15 milligrams, 30 milligrams, 50 milligrams. She could hardly take a milligram, but a milligram made her feel better, and 2 milligrams made her feel worse. She was working directly with me, and I said, I want you to figure out what is the dose of zinc that you can take that helps you feel better and causes no negative symptoms. And I gave her a range. This is what I do with the people I work with. I said, here's the maximum you could go up to. And I said, you're probably not going to get there. This is the maximum, though. This is not a goal. This is the maximum. And she found, she was splitting up a 15 milligram pill into 15 servings. This is dedication. This is the dedication that Accutane people need. It's not just like throw a bunch of pills in and hope for the best. This is not what we do here. We take this very, very seriously because I want to get people better, and I first do no harm. Boy, dermatologists must have missed that class. Here, take some Accutane. Seriously. You should. I've been over the side effects of Accutane in teenagers. The sexual side effects. It's almost like it's an infertility drug. And those of you out there who know how it has affected your function know that it's practically an infertility drug. It breaks people's, well, I'm going to say we can fix these things, but it breaks people's systems. It takes a long time to fix. And I'm always trying to figure out how to fix it better. Everybody's journey is different. That's a big thing. Everybody wants it to just be the same. Everyone wants to be like, how much zinc do I take? There's a reason why I help the most complex and complicated people who are willing to do the work. Because I say, here's like when they're doing the testing with me. First, if you're not doing the testing, you're guessing, right? I mean, Pierre, here's what we test. We don't guess, and then we address. That is the way I can help people the best is by knowing what's going on in their system. Now, with the person who took 1 milligram of zinc, was she zinc deficient? Yeah. Did 2 milligrams of zinc cause her to dump a lot of copper into the system and make her feel terrible? Yeah. 1 milligram was good. So her test said she needs zinc, and normally I would use a certain amount of zinc. But I also knew, because I deal with the most sensitive and the most broken people, I said, you're probably not going to be able to take anywhere near that amount of the max I gave her. I think the max I gave her was 15 milligrams, knowing her history. And she listened to me. And we got her off of benzos, anti-anxiety drugs. She was having a terrible time weaning off of those. But we got her. I told her what to do. Well, I didn't tell her what to do. I gave her guidance on what to do. And she listened. And she listened to her body in terms of dosing things. And she's still working on getting better. And this is, I mean, she's been with me a long time, probably like 3 or 4 years. But the key thing here, folks, is this liver damage that you have. This is toxic bile theory. The liver damage that you have and the toxins that you have stored in your liver. And I want you to know, does Accutane store in your liver? No. Most likely not. But you have to think about this. Every day your liver is dealing with toxins. What Accutane definitely does is Accutane causes liver injury, which means that basically, I'm going to give you the simplified version. Your entire detox system has been slowed down. So just like if you had a sewage pipe that all of a sudden shrunk, you can't get rid of your sewage as much. So then you think of a toilet that you can't flush well, and it backs up shit into your system. This is why you're sick, Accutane people and vitamin A poison people, and everybody who's got a liver injury. You're backing up, just like a toilet overflowing. You are backing up bile, basically shit, into your bloodstream. This is why you're sick. So the very stuff that's in you're not detoxing well. The stuff we're trying to detox is poisons. So if you do it wrong, you just push you push more poison into your blood and you feel terrible. This is not a game. Now, lots of people out there will do things that completely shut down your detox system, like take vitamin D supplements, like take vitamin A, like take copper, like take manganese, and just shuts everything down. And then everything gets stuck in your liver even more. And then what happens when the dam finally breaks, or you stop taking that supplement for whatever reason? Then everything, just like with the chemo, after a while, everything starts rushing out again, and you're sicker than you were when you started. There's terrible information out there, and no one understands toxic bile theory except what I'm putting out there and the people here who are listening to me. Everyone who pays attention to toxic bile theory, after they understand it, they realize why these things made them feel better for a while and then they felt worse, or why these things actually truly helped them feel better. And they can look at the phases of their life and figure out why they were better and why they were worse at certain times. This is not an easy road to go. So Sam, for anybody out there, like I said, I want to help Accutane people. I actually found that the Facebook Accutane groups were some of the most viciously antagonistic to my work. So I left those groups. There's also tons of pharma shills in those groups, if you didn't know. So I want to help Accutane people, but their mindset must be correct for them to come into this work, because it's not an easy road out at all. It's a long, hard road, and Accutane people have one of the longest roads out, and they want it to be the opposite. They want it to be the shortest and easiest way out, and that nobody's got that for you. Okay? So let me go to the super chats now. Oh yeah, don't forget, everybody, to like the show. There's 42 people here right now. There's only 18 likes. So if you're here and you want to put the effort in, X out of the chat and go like the chat, or like the video. If you're here later, make sure to like it. Make sure to leave a comment. I don't care how short, emoji, W, whatever. Love the comments. I always get a kick out of them. But yeah, this is how you help this to spread to more people. If you didn't know, I just got a note. Well, you wouldn't know. I got a little email from YouTube today saying this is our channel's 3rd anniversary. So this is 3 years now. Obviously, that means I started in 2020 in the midst of something crazy that was going on. But yeah. So here we go. Let's find the super chats. Okay, Sarah asks, hi, Dr. Smith, any thoughts on migraines and bile theory? I've been struggling for 11 years and hoping to heal my liver with your program. Thank you for your hard work and courage to seek and speak truth. Okay. Well, let me just, I want to give that some time. That's like, I saw this question and I want to hit it and I want to do it justice. I think, was that the topic? I think that might have been. So here's a funny thing. Last week after I did the live stream, I was like, I had a great topic in mind. And it might have been your question. I was like, oh, I could do headaches and cover all the stuff that we tend to cover. but I didn't remember what it was. And I got to this morning and I was like, I don't have a topic. So I did the adjuvants and the chemo. But I want to come back to that. I will absolutely come back to that. I think these other questions are a lot shorter. Victoria says, I am not a client yet. Do you or are you willing to recommend you healthy 40-year-old female Keystone Minerals / zinc supplement? It seems Lactoferrin for clients on your plan. Lactoferrin is amazing. If you're going to try Lactoferrin, generally what I'm doing with people is I'm having them fix their minerals first and the Lactoferrin after their minerals. Lactoferrin is super potent. So if you're going to do the Lactoferrin, either you read the Lactoferrin articles in the network, or because I care, there is a link on the bottle of Lactoferrin for you to read that anybody can access. It's not in the program. Because Lactoferrin done with just without precaution, remember, these are toxins in the liver. That your liver stores toxins. Anybody who says the liver doesn't store toxins, just immediately stop listening to them. Just stop listening to them if they say the liver doesn't store toxins. Ask them to go on PubMed and type in accumulate. That's the word that they use. They'll be like, I went on PubMed and I typed the word store in and it doesn't come up for anything on the liver. We'll go and type in accumulate and the results will be a lot different. So again, anything that could cause you to dump bile too quickly can cause you to leak more toxins into your system. Lactoferrin is amazing at getting your liver healthier, which means a healthier liver starts pumping out more bile. But if the bile's going back into your blood, you're going to feel bad. You're going to have a bad time. People here know that. But Lactoferrin is our biggest selling supplement. It's an amazing compound. But the stronger the medicine, the more you need to get the dose right. Because too much is too much. So that definitely, Lactoferrin is something that I've been moving back on the list of people to start because I want them to have here's the simple explanation. Lactoferrin is not an essential dietary nutrient. Our bodies have to make it. If our bodies don't make it, then we're screwed. And what have I shown in the research before on previous live streams? Vitamin A destroys epithelial cells. Vitamin A damages the production of neutrophils. What in our body makes lactoferrin? Epithelial cells, neutrophils. Weird that lactoferrin would help the vitamin A detox process so much then, right? Coinky-dink. Now, I am not cavalier enough, or some might say stupid enough, to go and tell you, Victoria, how much of something you need. That would be a quick way for me to get in trouble. It just doesn't make any sense. Now, what I tell people who are not testing is that the maximum zinc that they could take without testing. Now, people don't have to listen to me. You can go do whatever you want. But generally, the maximum zinc I suggest for people without testing is 30 milligrams a day, which is a very common supplement dose. So it's not like I'm doing anything crazy. Do I have people go above that who are testing with me and who are getting guidance with me? Yeah. People who are not testing with me, I don't take them above that. If they go above that, that is on their own, and that is not on me. Now, Keystone Minerals. Keystone Minerals, if you didn't know, you can find it on our page, nutritiondetective.com, in the shop. Keystone Minerals is kind of my foundational multi-mineral. It contains 30 milligrams of zinc. Hey, what a crazy amount to put in there. It contains 150 micrograms of selenium, and it contains 150 micrograms of molybdenum. These are these are the foundational amounts. If somebody were to take one a day of those, and they're not an overly sensitive person, which typically, if you are overly sensitive to supplements, let me explain something. If you are overly sensitive to supplements and almost anything you take causes you to have a bad reaction, you are super toxic. And what you're doing is anything you take that might move you forward is causing you to dump too much toxic bile, which may not be that much bile, but it may just be super toxic. And then it goes right into your blood and you feel terrible. So sensitive people can't take these doses. And you have to remember what we're trying to do here in medicine. The way you can help the most people, I worked for Dr. Lawrence Wilson, or no, I'm sorry, Dr. James Wilson. I didn't work for Dr. Lawrence Wilson, the crazy hair analysis guy. I don't suggest doing anything Dr. Lawrence Wilson says. I meant Dr. James Wilson. Got the two Dr. Wilsons confused. Dr. James Wilson wrote the original book on adrenal fatigue. The original book on it. Long time, like 30 years ago. He was a ND, DC, PhD. Smart guy. Didn't figure out the bile theory thing, though. But anyway, he said, he was giving me advice one day. And I was like, but what about the people who can't take it, right? Because I was already thinking about this. What about the people who can't take this? This is my mindset for a long time. He said, Garrett, if you can make a supplement that 80% of the population can take and it helps them, you have done a very, very good thing. He said, there's always going to be people who can't take it for whatever reason. It could be that it's placebo, like it's a placebo effect of I can't take this. They try to take it and they're like, everything is bad for me. And that could be a mindset thing. It could be they're very, very toxic. It could be that whatever's in that thing is not good for them. Well, Dr. James Wilson used to sell an all organ meat supplement. Gosh, could you imagine people having a negative reaction to that? Oh, I can't. Oh, that's all sarcasm if you didn't know. Organ meats are terrible. Don't eat organ meats. An organ meat that's a muscle, it's a little bit different. Like if you were eating heart, it's a muscle. It's not the liver or the spleen or the pancreas. Those are gross anyway. They taste gross because they're toxic. But anyway, if somebody were to try, so I have people do this. Some people say, well, Dr. Smith, I just want to try the Keystone Minerals. I just want to try it, see if it works. Okay. That's why I kept it at those doses. You can try it. Give it a week. If anything doesn't feel good on it, you either need to take less, break up the capsule, or it's not for you yet. Could you imagine my person who could only take 1 milligram of zinc a day taking 30 milligrams in a Keystone Minerals? That would not have been good. So, if you start on the Keystone Minerals and everything seems okay, give it a whole week. Usually, if you're going to have a negative reaction because it's too much zinc or too much selenium or too much molybdenum, that's the thing is if you take one pill with 3 things in it and you don't feel good from it, you don't know which one it was. You don't know which one was okay, which one wasn't. Could it have been all 3 of them? Yeah. Could it have been just one of them? Sure. So you can try it, see how it goes. If it goes okay, then those are like I said, those are the foundational amounts that I don't find cause excess or toxicity. It's not too much for most people, for like 80% of people. But some people it's too much for. And then if people start on Keystone Minerals and they take it and let's say they don't feel good or it's too much for them in that pill, then what they have to do is they have to break it down into each of the supplements separately, which is how I normally start people. Here's how I usually progress people. Get your selenium. Figure out we test. We figure out their dose based on just selenium. That might take 2 or 3 weeks. Then we work on molybdenum. That might take 2 weeks. Maybe 3. 2 to 3 weeks, possibly. And then we work on zinc separately. And then if people have figured out that they tolerate well 30 milligrams of zinc, 150 micrograms of selenium, 150 micrograms of molybdenum, all 3 of those, then they can take the Keystone Minerals and they can reduce the amount of pills or drops or whatever that they have to take in a day. That's how we do this. We take this seriously. We are not just throwing supplements at people in random doses. So that's what I can give you. If you want more supplement information, just like Sam did, that's in the Love Your Liver program. I mean, you got to remember the Love Your Liver program, folks. It is like my life's work, and it's $99 a year. Think of how much money you've just wasted on supplements in the last year that didn't work. And people are like, well, I don't want to pay $99 a year to get like Dr. Smith's best information. It's like a textbook worth of information in there, folks. This is not like some joke it's not a little PDF. Geez, if you just read The Madness of Modern Nutrition, if you want my free stuff, go to madnessofmodernnutrition.com and you can read the free stuff that I've put out. And that stuff I just had somebody who's in the Love Your Liver program read the Madness of Modern Nutrition stuff, and she just sent me an email saying, this is great. There's even some things in here that I didn't know. And this is a person who's been with me for like probably longer than the vitamin A detox stuff has been around. The amount of information in there is, and I'm trying to be modest here, it's mind-blowing, and it's a ton of information. So for those of you who are wondering, you want to know my advice on supplements and detox stuff and charcoal and all that stuff, spend the money, go into the program. That's where the meat is. And for those of you who are already in it and you want to back up what I'm saying, go ahead in the chat or go ahead in the comments later. Like, people's minds are blown by what's in the Love Your Liver program. And I'd say that in all modesty. Like, it is my life's work. So, okay, so let me just hit this one from Will. Will was saying, I know somebody who juiced carrots who had a brain tumor because it was like chemo. He died 2 years later with 8 brain tumors. Okay. And I know if some of you who know people who did the vegetable juicing, like cancer cure, it comes back later. And what I've also known is I knew somebody in naturopathic medical school who supposedly cured their cancer. They did actually have a giant chunk of their neck cut out. So they had the area cut out. But they put a family member on their vegetable juicing diet, and lo and behold, it worked. And then the person stopped doing it, which apparently, for those of you who know, the vegetable juicing approach is if you stop doing it for the rest of your life, the cancer just comes back and kills you very quickly. This is a known pattern. Does this sound anything like chemo? Where like it comes back worse and kills you faster? Once you start the chemo route, folks, you're in that chemo route. And it's going to kill you. It was the 5th round of chemo that killed my dad. I like to think that the men in our family have pretty good constitutions. 5 rounds of chemo it took to kill my dad. I didn't know this stuff back then. I don't know what chemo he had. You know, people are like, they have weird family relationships. I'm going to tell you, my dad didn't tell me he had cancer for 12 years. Kept it a secret. I found out finally. He finally told me. I mean, I knew. I figured it out. I'm the nutrition detective. Like, you can't hide that stuff from me. I'll figure it out. But anyway, I didn't let him know I knew because it was a very big deal to him that I didn't know. But I finally found out when he went to the hospital. Let me just tell you the lies or the complete incompetence of modern medicine. My dad went to the hospital because he was having all this chest pain and esophagitis and irritation up in his, tubes that go to the mouth, the breathing tubes and the stomach tubes. And then he's telling the nurse. The nurse is like, well, okay, so tell me your history. She's getting his history again. We're at the university hospital. He said, Garrett, I haven't told you this yet, but I have prostate cancer and I've been going through chemo and radiation and whatever. And I was like, I just kind of acted like Oh, that's interesting. I had no idea. And he'd had it for 12 years. And so they give him a bunch of, they do the hospital BS on him, send him home. And I'm like, I ask him about his symptoms because I was trying not to be too nosy, right? Because I wasn't even supposed to know this was going on. And he gives me his symptoms and I look it up and he's got esophagitis. And I'm like, did you do anything recently? Did you? And he goes, well, yeah, I had some radiation therapy. So I go and I look up radiation therapy and esophagitis, and it says like one of the most common symptoms of radiation therapy is esophagitis. And nobody at the damn university hospital ever put this together. Medicine is not that hard. It's complicated. It's simple, but not easy. It took me a minute on the internet to figure out that the radiation therapy had caused a side effect in my dad. And they take him to the oncology department of the university and they can't even figure it out. And I'm like, do you people even know how to do your jobs? Really? Anyway. Okay, so somebody, I want to get back to that question, Sarah. Ramon said, I developed high uric acid and recurring gout attacks, maybe from the high beer consumption. We're going to hit this real quick. I quit beer and minimize fructose. What are your thoughts? Thank you. So Ramon, I'm sorry, I forgot to say everybody, thank you for the super chats. I really appreciate them. Sometimes I forget. I just want to answer the question, so I forget to say thank you. Okay, so somebody else asked, are there any connections between gout and vitamin A? Well, hey, I just mentioned the great Anthony Mawson first. So let's go to PubMed. PubMed.gov is the easy way to get there. Let's type in Mawson and gout. Here we have two papers from Anthony Mawson, hypervitaminosis A toxicity and gout. And gout and vitamin A intoxication. Is there a connection? That was the older one, right? Yeah, so the first one of them was 1984 in the Lancet of all places, and one of them was 1991. So, alcohol. First of all, alcohol causes liver injury. Liver injury means cholestasis. Cholestasis means toxic bile leaking into the blood. And alcohol and fructose, if you didn't know, fructose over time turns into alcohol in your system. You can go read Lustig's paper on it, where he compared. His paper was called Fructose. It's alcohol without the buzz, because the fructose effects don't hit your nervous system and make you drunk. So, I believe, isn't there a connection between fructose and gout? There's a great fructose intake and risk of gout and hyperuricemia, a systematic review. Let's just see what this says. Conclusions. Fructose consumption was associated with an increased risk of developing gout in predominantly white health professionals, because this was a study, I think this was, it wasn't the NHANES paper. So we have fructose. Now, I'm not saying not to eat fruit. If you eat whole fruit, especially low vitamin A fruits, what are the three best lowest vitamin A fruits? People wonder. Bananas, more towards, so if you're going to pick bananas between green and totally brown, okay, right? There's a spectrum. There's a spectrum. It's better to eat them a little more towards the green side than it is more towards the brown side, because as they get more brown, they make more formaldehyde. Okay? That's why really ripe bananas will upset your stomach and nobody wants to eat them, because your body intuitively is like, don't eat this. It's not going to feel good. This is why you have to cook overly ripe bananas into banana bread, because the cooking them cooks off or bakes off the formaldehyde. And then you can eat those overly ripe bananas that you would have thrown away. You're cooking off the formaldehyde. You're off-gassing them. And the ways to off-gas things is to increase the heat. That's one way to do it. So anyway, bananas, apples, green grapes. Those are the best low vitamin A fruits. So Ramon is trying to fix his stuff. Ramon has been working on less alcohol, and we're all behind Ramon with this, challenge that he has. So uric acid. So here's the thing to know. So alcohol itself causes liver injury, causes bile leakage. Obviously, fructose does the same thing. And if you look at, there's a chart in the Alcohol Without the Buzz paper by Lustig where he compares the researched damage symptoms caused by alcohol, and then he goes down the same issues with fructose, and you'll see that most of the same things show up for both alcohol and fructose. Now, every carb you eat, just so you know, every carbohydrate you eat, some of it turns into alcohol. Okay? We make alcohol in our systems. Fructose is something you're going to eat. People out there are saying, Dr. Smith said no fructose. I didn't say that. Don't put words in my mouth. I eat bananas almost every day. I didn't say no fructose. Don't add, here's a crazy concept. Don't add sugar to things. Don't add sugary sources to foods. Don't drink a ton of fruit juice. Don't drink juice. Don't drink sodas. Don't drink sugars. Don't add sugars. If you want to have good whole fruits, be my guest. How hard is this? This is not hard. Don't put words in my mouth. I didn't say no fruits. So anyway, back to the vitamin A thing. So ethanol is an alcohol, an aldehyde, and an acid. And retinol is an alcohol, turns into retinaldehyde, turns into retinoic acid. The research shows that when you drink alcohol, Ramon, the alcohol, your body will actually store alcohol in the liver as ethyl fatty acid esters. Okay? You can store alcohol in the liver. It doesn't stay there very long. It stays there for like up to a week, maybe. I've done an article. I think I did something on this on my research forum. You can store, they can test you there. They have certain tests where they could test you for alcohol like up to a week later because this stuff is coming out of your liver. Now, your liver wants it out of there. Your liver stores alcohol and it kicks out the vitamin A from the liver into the blood. And this is in the research. People think that I made this mistake too. This is why this is not a game. And if you want to go and try to do the research yourself, you're probably going to make all the same mistakes that we have already made and figured out were bad interpretations of the research. The studies show that when you drink alcohol, it kicks vitamin A. They see the liver vitamin A go down a little bit, and then they see the blood vitamin A go up. That's terrible. People think that that's a sign that you're detoxing vitamin A. Where vitamin A causes you the most problems is when it's in your blood, folks. So anyway, your body is storing the alcohol in the liver because it's more dangerous. I want you to think about how easily you can kill yourself with alcohol. Alcohol poisoning, right? You can do it in couple hours. You could do it in an hour. So the body is always trying to choose the slow death over the quick death. And it says, well, we got an alcohol already stored in the liver called retinol. And now this person's putting ethanol in. We can store ethanol in the liver as ethyl fatty acid esters. We can kick out the retinol esters, put those out into the bile and into the blood. It's less toxic than the alcohol because the retinol, people are dying slowly from vitamin A toxicity every day. Alcohol can kill you in an hour if you do it enough. So the body says, we're going to choose. We're going to kick out the vitamin A from the liver to make room for the alcohol. And then as soon as the drinking has passed, then the body starts trying to kick the alcohol out of the liver and put the vitamin A back in. Funny thing, Anthony Mawson wrote 2 papers on how vitamin A toxicity can cause gout, and alcohol can cause gout, and fructose can cause gout. Funny thing that the fructose, we don't emphasize fructose on the program. We do a lot of things like this where it's just don't add. Humanity has never gotten better since we started making processed sugars. Humanity has not gotten better health from processed oils. So what do? Do we worry about fats in foods a lot? Not really. Do we worry about sugars in foods? Whole foods? Not really. Do we try not to add extra oils and fats and sugars to things? Yeah. This should make sense. Now, there are exceptions for those who are underweight. They may need to eat more fat because being underweight is a real issue. And that's the liver is in deeper doo-doo when you are underweight and you can't maintain weight. Overweight people are easier to fix than underweight people. And I've been over this progression before, like the alcoholic progression. People who are drinking too much alcohol, they tend to gain weight first, right? In the early phases. And then once they're really, truly liver damaged and they're alcoholics, then they start getting overly skinny, where they can't keep weight on, but they're actually drinking most of their calories. They do tend to have that big belly. They tend to have the big red nose and the red face. The big belly is intermesenteric fat, which is terrible. And they probably have a giant fatty liver making space. And then the red face and the red nose is just an indicator of their liver's in bad shape. But so we can see how overweight can turn to underweight, and it's a sign of more liver damage. That's what it's showing externally, the phenotype, if you will. So that's the connection, Ramon. So you're already doing the low vitamin A, you're getting rid of the alcohol, and you're minimizing fructose. These are all very good steps. So for right now, maybe for Ramon right now, fruit's not a great choice. Okay. Can he maybe get back to it later as he's gotten through the storm of this difficult part? Sure. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Israel, quick question. I get tired/sleepy after lunch. Meals are almost exclusively beef, quinoa, and beans. I drink mineral water with meals. I'm tapering off energy drinks in the morning. Any insight would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. So I'm going to make this simple. Energy drinks are freaking garbage. Caffeine is an insecticide. Here's the thing you guys don't know. Most pesticides they act on acetylcholinesterase, and caffeine is an acetylcholine kind of pumper, right? So plants could overload bugs with caffeine and make them feel real bad or kill them. Like if you've ever had too much caffeine and you felt real bad, got the heart just going crazy and the anxiety and all that. Imagine a little insect. Anyway, so caffeine. An easy way to think of caffeine is if you have any anxiety problems or any sleep problems, caffeine is liquid anxiety. If you just think of it that way, that will really help you to avoid it. And caffeine keeps you awake. So if you have insomnia, the very first thing you should get rid of is caffeine. Okay? Now, the other thing about caffeine is over time, this is a classic duration paradox effect. Duration paradox. One of the ways of looking at it is something that you start taking that, let's say caffeine, it gives you energy. It doesn't give you energy. You're like raw. I love the way somebody put this once. They said, what caffeine is doing or what other stimulants are doing is they're taking future energy and they're using it now. So then as you get into the future, you have less energy. And what happens to people who drink caffeine or energy drinks, coffee, all this stuff over time? At the start, it helps them with energy. And over time, their energy gets worse and worse and worse because they have stolen energy from the future. So, liquid anxiety, stealing energy from your future. So if you're tired after lunch, that's probably when your morning energy drink is wearing off. That's one potential thing. Because as we all know, the key hallmarks of a drug effect: tolerance, addiction, withdrawal. Tolerance means over time you need more of the same thing to get the same effect, but that's usually diminishing over time, right? I mean, we watch people do it. They start with 1 cup of coffee, and then later, 2 years later or 3 years later, they're on 2 pots a day of coffee, right? That's tolerance. And then there'll be the ones who are at the office all tired all day. They're tired all the time, and yet they drink coffee all day, and they're like, I can't figure it out. Stop taking drugs, right? So that's tolerance. Addiction would be, well, with addiction is kind of goes along with withdrawal, but addiction would be feeling like they can't live without it. They have to have it to function, right? Here's a tip. Things that are good for you don't cause addiction ever. And if somebody says, well, we have to breathe and we have to eat, that's not addiction, okay? Addiction would be to things you don't have to live. Let's be intelligent here. Withdrawal would be you get symptoms when you stop taking that thing that you did not have before you started. Like if you didn't have headaches before you started drinking coffee or caffeine, and you get a habit, and then all of a sudden you quit suddenly, or you don't have your coffee one day and you have a raging headache, that's a withdrawal symptom. Or if you're getting like practically narcoleptic, that's one reason I had to quit coffee, was because when I would quit, I would practically get like narcoleptic in the middle of my consults. Sometimes I'd even be like I'd be falling asleep in the middle. That's not normal. That's not okay. And that's how I knew that I had a problem. And that's how I knew that it was really, truly a drug. So, over time, caffeine, coffee, energy drinks will make you more anxious. They will ruin your sleep, and they will make you more tired. But in the beginning, that caffeine felt amazing, didn't it? Right? On top of the world, getting so much work done, so much motivation, all that stuff. No, that means it's a drug effect, and everything that it did at the start is going to become the opposite later. So that's the caffeine energy drink, that connection. Now, when people get tired after lunch, I'm going to give you 3 potential things that I have fixed in myself to fix that. Number 1, too much water and fluids in the early parts of the day. If you are getting to the afternoon, Israel, and you are peeing clear, like after lunch, you're consuming too many fluids in the first part of the day, and it's hitting you in that probably 2 to 4 p.m. crash. Okay? Too many fluids in the early part of the day. And now this can include energy drinks. This could include soup. This could include the water you put in your beans. Like it can be, you can eat water, right? So if you're drinking and you're eating water, like whether it's oats or whether it's beans or whether it's soup or whatever, you can still consume too much fluids by eating. Okay, this is just things to think about. I'm not saying this is what's going on. But I have a whole hydration video in the Love Your Liver program that some people have said made a bigger impact in their day-to-day life than anything else they've ever done. And mostly it's me saying, stop drinking so much damn water. If you're peeing clear, you're drinking too much water. If all of a sudden you notice during the day that you're getting really, really tired and you're peeing clear, you did that to yourself. You drank too much water. You diluted your soup. And if you want to know the soup analogy, you got to watch the video. Now, I got this soup idea from Matt Stone of 180 Degree Health. He was brilliant contrarian guy. He's actually the guy who introduced me to Grant Genereux. Matt's not really writing about health anymore, but he's big on the vitamin A toxicity thing. As an example, Matt, he's super contrarian, but he told me once, he's like, dude, I could eat Skittles all day long, every day, and my asthma will go away and stay away. He's just making a point, but he doesn't eat very well. But he knows that vitamin A is a poison, but he says, if I go and I eat vitamin A, dairy or butter or whatever, he's like, my asthma comes back immediately, and I can't get rid of it for until he does 3 days of low vitamin A. He can't get rid of it. But 3 days of low vitamin A will get rid of it again. So he's like, I can eat complete garbage that's low vitamin A, and my asthma stays away. But as soon as I eat vitamin A, it's back. So we have too much. We have the caffeine problem. We have potentially too much fluids in the earlier part of the day. And then we have not enough potassium through the day. A classic symptom of potassium deficiency is getting tired within usually about a half hour after eating. It's like people will say, I ask them, do you feel like eating, like the saying, eating makes me tired is true for you? And if they say yes, then it's like, first thing we go after is potassium deficiency. So those are 3 big things. Now, I will tell you one other thing that used to affect me. I remember during naturopathic medical school, where I was still figuring out diet stuff. I mean, I was figuring out diet stuff for years after naturopathic medical school, but I started to notice that if I ate gluten, if I ate gluten at lunchtime, like I was narcoleptic after lunch. Like I would seriously, my after lunch classes, I've had these problems. So this is how people like want my history to be like, I've been the healthiest person ever. No, I had problems. That's how I fixed them. That's how I figured this stuff out, is I had problems and I fixed them. So gluten, if I ate gluten at lunch, I would have to put my head on my desk in my after lunch class, and I would fall asleep for about 5 minutes. I would wake up all hot and sweaty, and then I'd be wide awake for the rest of the day. You want to know what happened? The gluten caused a bile dump. I got sleepy from it, because you can get wired from bile dumps. You could get sleepy from bile dumps. I had a bile dump, put me to sleep. I couldn't fight it. And I would wake up 5 minutes later. Then I'd get the fever, bilious fever. Here, let me put that link up. Bilious fever, which is like night sweats and hot flashes and the sweating and the heat that I had after I woke up. There's that bilious fever on Wikipedia, of all places. I'm glad they kept that knowledge alive. But even back then, let me look at this. What was the date on this? When were they talking about this? Language of the Mormon pioneers, bilious fever. So 18th and 19th centuries, for any fever that exhibited the symptom of nausea or vomiting, in addition to an increase in internal body temperature and strong diarrhea, which were thought to arise from disorders of bile, the 2 types of which were 2 of the 4 humors of traditional Galenic medicine. It was often cited as a cause on death certificates. Toxic bile theory. Toxic bile has been the cause of human disease for a very, very long time. You don't have to have jaundice to have bile in your blood causing you problems. So anyway, I saw that you're not eating gluten, Israel, so that's not really an issue for you. But those are the things that I would look at. Okay. So then we have, let me just make sure nobody else got one. Okay, so now we're on to Sarah's thing. Okay, and thank you for the super chat, Israel. Oh wait, here we go. Ryan, I missed this one. Increase free testosterone by lowering ferritin correlation. I don't know. If you have research on that, post a link. Do we take lactoferrin, follow diet, blood draws to lower ferritin to healthy range? Ferritin's a big problem, but I want you to understand why ferritin is what ferritin is showing. Your body binds, I believe your liver binds ferritin to iron to protect you from it. Because free iron is way more toxic than iron-bound ferritin. What your body does a lot of times is it binds proteins like ferritin. Your liver makes, I swear, your liver makes the most proteins to bind to iron than any other mineral in your system. Because we need iron to an extent. We need it. But it's super toxic. So our body makes all these different transferrins and ferritins and all these different iron binding proteins and lactoferrin, tons of different iron binding proteins, because we have to have iron in our system, but we have to protect ourselves from it. Okay, so your liver makes ferritin, it binds it to iron. Your liver gets rid of the ferritin, the iron bound to ferritin, via the bile. So if you have your body has no need to put ferritin into the blood. Like even modern medicine says ferritin is an iron, it's an indicator of how much iron you have stored. So then you go, well, why is the body putting ferritin into the blood then? How's the ferritin binds to iron, the liver puts it out in the bile. So those of you who understand toxic bile theory, then you go, well, how is all this excess ferritin an indicator of storage iron in the liver that we should be getting rid of via the bile? How's it getting into the blood? Well, here, let me answer that. Cholestasis, toxic bile leaking into your blood. So high ferritin is an indicator of cholestasis, liver injury, toxic bile leaking into your blood. Can that ferritin, the iron bound to ferritin, be causing problems in your blood? Yes. Is it better than all that iron floating around as free iron? Yeah, it's just like copper bound to ceruloplasmin. Ceruloplasmin is not delivering copper to places. Ceruloplasmin is made by your liver to protect you from excess copper. Okay, here's the funny thing about when people get sick. Modern medicine notes that acute phase reactants go up in the blood. Acute phase reactants go up in the blood. What are two of the biggest acute phase reactants that they talk about? Ferritin and ceruloplasmin. What if I were to say that toxic bile leaking into your blood is causing those problems? And what does toxic bile contain? Copper, iron. The body's binding ceruloplasmin and ferritin to those things. That's how it stored it. And it's leaking into the blood. And that's what's causing much of your problems. So, what do I do in terms of ferritin with people? I have my approaches on lowering ferritin via blood draws. Lowering ferritin via blood draws is a symptomatic treatment. You must understand. It is modern medicine's only real approach to lowering ferritin in the blood. They have people do blood draws. They call them, why am I not remembering the name of it right now? Oh, therapeutic phlebotomy. And they might do very small blood draws, but a lot of them. You know, they might have you come in weekly and they just take out a little blood each time. They don't do a full unit blood donation. So I have my numbers that I go by that I offer people. I say, if you're willing and able to do blood draws, you have high ferritin, getting that ferritin down could help you feel better. Doing the blood draws could move things along, but it's not fixing the root cause. When you take out a blood donation, you're taking out, I mean, I don't know if you guys know this, but blood is actually considered a tissue in the human body when it's in you. It's considered one of your tissues, like it's almost like an organ itself. The blood is like an organ itself. It's a living thing. It's doing stuff. So when you take out a chunk of blood, we'll just call it a chunk of blood via a blood donation or a therapeutic phlebotomy, you are taking out the bad stuff in the blood, and you're also taking out the good stuff in the blood. And one of the things that people don't understand is they don't want to think that you're taking out anything good. They're like the people who are obsessed with iron overload, they're just like, take it out, it's bad. And you're like, well, you're taking out good stuff too. That's what people don't understand about chelation. If you're trying to chelate minerals, chelators always take out good minerals just as much as they take out bad minerals. They're not that selective. And anybody who studies chelation understands this. So a lot of these approaches, they might take out the bad stuff, but then they leave the person more nutritionally depleted than they were before. So what are we trying to do on the program? We're giving people what they need based on testing. We're also having them not re-put in the bad stuff. So if you do a blood donation, which does take out some good stuff, it does take out some bad stuff, but everything we're doing is we're trying to put back in the good stuff and not put back in the bad stuff. So it shifts the mathematical balance towards more good and less bad relatively to each other. Now, if people feel terrible after blood donations, don't do them. They obviously are taking out something that you can't handle, whether it's just a vasovagal reaction from sticking the needle into your arm. Like if you tend to faint if they stick a needle in your arm, you just got a big vasovagal reaction. You're probably toxic. That's why. And that's you can't do it yet. Don't overly stress your system just to take out a chunk of blood. But I give people recommendations on how many blood draws they could do should they choose to do them, which could help their symptoms quicker. But I also tell them if it makes you feel bad, don't do it. So you see, it's always like, doc, it hurts when I do this. Well, don't do that. Some people are like, they don't want to, there's the theories out there about where the blood is going. And they're like, I'm not going to do it because I'm not going to contribute to consuming blood or whatever. Okay, don't do it. I don't care. The reasons are not my concern. You can do it or you don't. But it's not fixing the root cause. The root cause is the cholestasis leaking the ferritin into the blood. Same thing with why you get high copper in the blood. Copper stored in the liver. Copper comes out in the bile. If you're leaking bile into the blood, you get high copper. Same thing with vitamin A. You store vitamin A in the liver. These are what do I measure in the blood? Serum retinol, vitamin A, serum copper, plasma zinc, ferritin. Those are the 4 blood tests I do. Think of how much I'm getting done with 4 blood tests and a hair test versus your functional medicine doctors or your other doctors who are running pages of blood tests and they don't get you any better and they make you worse with $800 of supplements a month or medications. So, can you donate blood? Sure. If people are not donating blood, if people are not monitoring their ferritin, I don't recommend more than 1 blood donation every 6 months. So twice a year. If you're not monitoring ferritin and you feel fine after a blood donation, what's a safe amount you could donate? Twice a year, once every 6 months. That's my opinion. People who are testing their ferritin can go more often. You need to know that if you haven't fixed the root cause, as soon as you stop donating, if you had high ferritin, as soon as you stop donating blood, it's going to go back up. If you're eating vitamin A, if you go through the research, vitamin A increases your iron absorption. That's one of the things they give it to. They say kids in Africa have anemia from low iron and they give them vitamin A and it raises their iron. So for you Westerners eating too much vitamin A and then lots of meat and you wonder why hemochromatosis, iron overload is everywhere. Well, there you go. The people out there, the protocol people thinking that why are they obsessed with donating blood? Because they're taking in a bunch of vitamin A and copper. They can't put it together. If you're a protocol person watching this, I fix broken protocol people. So if you're wondering why the protocol didn't fix you, I'm here. We fix their improper interpretations of the research. So in terms of increasing free testosterone, I'm going to make a video pretty soon. We have a guy, Accutane survivor, who took his total testosterone from low 300s up into low 900s. So he actually had a higher total testosterone level than I did. In terms of increasing free testosterone, there's several approaches on it. The biggest thing, we want to fix the cholestasis. We want to fix the toxic bile leaking into the blood. That's the biggest thing. Okay. Lactoferrin can help, but again, don't try to fix lactoferrin if you haven't fixed your zinc, if you haven't fixed your selenium, if you haven't fixed your molybdenum, if you haven't figured out how much magnesium you need, if you haven't figured out how much potassium you need. Lactoferrin is secondary. The diet, I mean, the low vitamin A diet, the Love Your Liver program, which is more than the Love Your Liver program is far more than just a low vitamin A diet. So if anybody simplifies my work to a low vitamin A diet, you have missed the boat entirely. Not saying you did, Ryan. But yeah, those are the things that we can do about ferritin. Ferritin is a symptom of a bigger problem. And we're working on the bigger problem, not obsessing over one blood test. Okay? So let me just make sure. See, I almost missed yours, Ryan. So I want to do Sarah's. So Sarah's question, this is the last. Don't send any more super chats because I got to wrap up after this. Any thoughts on migraines and bile theory? So what I'm going to do, Sarah, is I'm going to simplify. I'm not going to go specifically over migraines. I'm going to go over headaches. Okay? We're going to group it all into just headaches. Okay? So let's just go and start doing some searches. Let's do serum bile headache. PubMed. Well, why don't we just start off with this one? It's not a headache one. Altered serum bile acid profile. Okay, we've talked about this before. The problems from bile in your blood can come from too much bile or the recipe of the bile, which they call the profile or the composition. Okay, right? You can change. Just think of how many different ways there are to put together flour and sugar and salt and eggs, right? Think of all the different things you could make with that. You just alter the recipe and you can make very, very different things. They're all kind of similar, but they can end up with very different things. That's like, think of that as the bile acid profile. Your different bile acid profiles can result in different diseases. You could change the bile acid profile and maybe get rid of one disease, but then you create another one. Never forget that you can simply trade disease states for each other. Vegans do this all the time. You could starve a cancer. You could eat up cancer tissue by under-eating food. And your body then goes and robs the protein from the tumors to feed you. And then you create malnutrition and protein malnutrition problems later. You can trade diseases for each other. So, altered serum bile acid profile in fibromyalgia is associated with specific gut microbiome changes and symptom severity. So I'm not going to go into this study. They're just, this is the first, here's a quote from it. The changes observed in the composition of the gut microbiota and the concentration of circulating secondary bile acids, the most toxic bile acids out there. TUDCA is a toxic secondary bile acid. Don't take it. So is UDCA. Seem congruent, lining up with the phenotype, the expression of increased nociception, higher pain sensitivity, not higher pain threshold, but higher pain sensitivity, and are quantitatively correlated with symptom severity. They correlate to symptom severity. This is the first demonstration of circulating bile acid alteration in individuals with fibromyalgia, potentially secondary to upstream gut microbiome alterations. If corroborated in independent studies, these observations may allow for the development of molecular diagnostic aids for fibromyalgia, as well as mechanistic insights into the syndrome. They're not going to fix it. They're just going to be like, oh, we looked at your blood bile acids, and oh, this makes sense. You have fibromyalgia. You're like, thanks, doc. I already knew I felt like shit. Thanks for looking at labs and telling me I should feel like shit. This is why most of these labs are a waste of time. They show you the symptoms. I just told you what the problem is. Too much bile in the blood, and the bile acid recipe sucks. We just found it with fibromyalgia too. Toxic bile theory is everywhere. And they're saying, oh, we could use it to diagnose it. Cool. Cool beans, doc. Thanks. So helpful. So let me go and see. So that wasn't headaches, but that was the first one to come up on the search. Do they call Headaches, something different in the research? Let me just type in migraine real quick. Ooh, wait. Okay, here we go. Migraines. Targeted metabolomics. Usually, when you see, so this is a key word for those of you who like to go out and search. Metabolomics often means they are measuring bile acids in the blood. Pierre got the definition of metabolomics one time in the inner circle. Okay, but let's just go. So here we have bile. Alterations in the relative abundance of several bacterial species known to metabolize bile concentration of secondary bile acids indicated a marked depletion of alpha muracolic acid. So that one's low. Statistical learning algorithms could accurately detect individuals with fibromyalgia using the concentration of these serum bile acids. So they figured out how to diagnose fibromyalgia by your bile acid recipe. Okay. Serum alpha muracolic acid was highly correlated with symptom severity, including pain intensity and fatigue. Am I on the right one? No, I'm on the fibromyalgia one. Sorry, I went to the wrong one. I clicked on the wrong lab. The wrong tab. Okay. In this work, they looked at 21 different bile acids. This is a good study. They looked at 21 different bile acids. Were compared in the serum of migraine patients and healthy controls using liquid chromatography tandem mass spectrometry. 2 secondary bile acids, the most toxic type, DCA and LCA, which is deoxycholic acid and lithocholic acid, as well as their glycine and taurine conjugated forms, were demonstrated with significant difference between male patients and male controls, while no obvious difference was found in the 2 female groups. They say here at the end, 5 differential metabolites may serve as potential serum biomarkers for the male migraine patients and providing a new site for the understanding of biomarker exploring of migraine in male. So now we have toxic bile theory showing up in terms of migraine. So let's just go and let's look at some of the other things that are toxic in bile. Okay. Oh, wait. TBI. Oh, that's traumatic brain injury. Oh, wait, I didn't want that. Nope. No. Okay. So let's just go look up serum copper migraine PubMed. For those of you who didn't know, copper toxicity, all over the internet, people will say that excess copper toxicity causes headaches. Okay. Well, we got elevated serum copper and ceruloplasmin levels in Alzheimer's. Folks, if your ceruloplasmin is going up, you have more copper in your blood. That's not a good thing. Okay. Wait, while we're here, the people pushing that's in elevating your ceruloplasmin is going to fix everything, like the bioavailable copper gurus. No. Okay. Here we have, so we're just going to move on to ferritin. Association between dietary iron intake and serum ferritin and severe headache or migraine. Now we're on to ferritin. Oh, God. So dietary iron intake was inversely associated with severe headache or migraine in women aged 20 to 50 years. So they're saying the less iron they ate, the more headache or migraine they had. These studies. For women over 50 years, serum ferritin was negatively associated with severe headache or migraine. So that would be more serum ferritin, less severe headache or migraine, but they're not saying whether it's like high or not. I'm not going to pull up this whole paper. Because higher can be higher relative to controls. They may all be normal, or one might be low, but I have not seen in my experience much of a connection between. Well, actually, wait. Let me tell you. I'm sorry. Since we were talking about blood draws today, I had a client, who was from New Zealand, and he grew up eating tons of beef and tons of lamb and probably tons of dairy too, which is high in what? Calcium, vitamin A, vitamin D, all things that I tend to have to reduce in people. And so I told this guy, I think his ferritin was in the 500s. And I told him, go donate blood, if you will. And I said, we can do 3 times because of his level of ferritin. I said, we can do 3 times before I see you again in 6 months to do another retest. And he said at the 3rd blood donation, this was what he told me. He said he felt like internally inside his body, while the blood donation was happening, he said he felt like something cracked inside his system. Maybe it was his liver. Who knows? He said he had migraines. This man had migraines every single day of his life, of his adult life. He said after that blood donation, he didn't have a migraine for 3 days. He'd never had 3 days without a migraine. So I said, well, keep up the blood donations. We got to keep this going. I don't know where he ended up. I mean, we were fixing his problem. I didn't see him again after that. We were fixing his problem though. Anyway, but what does donating blood take out of your blood? I mean, that I measure, it takes out vitamin A, it takes out copper, it takes out iron, it takes out everything bad, right? But it also takes out some good stuff. So we better make sure we're putting the good stuff back in. I drove myself. So for those of you who think you're just going to go and donate a bunch of blood to fix everything, I drove myself. You want to hear a cautionary tale? I drove myself anemic, like significantly anemic, because I thought I was going to be a good Samaritan, and I was donating blood every 8 weeks, as quick as I could donate. And everybody said, oh, donating blood is so good for men. Can you overdo it? Yeah, you can overdo it. Here's the story. I went every 2 months for 5 times in a row. I have my American Red Cross donation history. I looked at it again. And after the 5th donation, I would wake up at night. The night after that donation, I would wake up at night at midnight. So I'd go to bed 9-ish, 9:30-ish. I would wake up at midnight and I was wide awake, eyes just wide awake. I was not going back to sleep. And I talked to a shiatsu massage therapist. She came in to get laser therapy, which was what I was doing back then. Red light and near infrared light are very good things. They oxidize vitamin A and other things. That's why they seem to help everything. So I was doing therapy on her, and I was telling her about what had been going on with me, because she's into Chinese medicine and stuff like that. And she goes, it sounds like you have blood deficiency in Chinese medicine. And I was like, I put it together, right? You can put together Chinese medicine and conventional medicine sometimes with blood deficiency. And I went, I donated blood on Monday, and this started Monday night. Oh my gosh. It's just pattern recognition. That's all I do, people. And so I immediately started doing back then the things I thought were best to fix blood deficiency. I got liver tablets. I gave myself B12 shots. I took more vitamin C. I did all the things that I knew back then to fix anemia. And each day I slept. It was kind of crazy. Each day I slept an hour longer. So I slept, instead of waking up at midnight, I woke up at 1 the next night, and then I woke up at 2 the next night, and then I woke up at 3 the next night, until I was back to normal within about a week. And then I said, I'm not donating blood without getting tested anymore, because that was not fun. So for like 3 nights, I just woke up at midnight and I couldn't sleep. So you can overdo blood donations. Absolutely. The protocol people, I have heard this from survivors, where they keep saying people go and they do a blood donation and they feel bad. And what are the protocol people trained to tell them? Oh, that's detox. That means you need to donate again. And they're not monitoring ferritin, because most of them don't have a medical license and they can't order blood tests. I can. And these people go and they're feeling worse and worse after each blood donation. And they keep getting the advice of, it's just detox. Just keep going back. Keep doing it. It will end eventually, until these people realize that this is the dumbest thing. Like, it's the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. They drove them anemic, but they're not testing them for that. They're only doing hair tests. Hair tests, if you ever have somebody assess your iron status on a hair test, you should run away from them. Hair tests are terrible for iron. Just like you don't use a screwdriver to hammer in a nail, you can't use a hair test for every single mineral. You can't use blood tests for everything either. You have to know how to use the right tool for the right job. And you have to know how to disregard, like, I'll put it to you this way. I had a guy with a 500 ferritin on a blood test. And according to most people in the hair analysis world, his iron was a 0.5, which most people would think that's low. I actually think that's fine. But his hair test was either, for some people would have said he was low, I would have said he was fine, but his ferritin was 500, which is even too high for conventional standards. Hair test iron is useless. But the hair test people who can only do hair tests because they can't run blood tests will act like everything on the hair test is handed down from on high. It's not. Got to use the right tool for the right job. So, sorry, I heard somebody knocking. Must be next door. What can we look up? Let's do serum zinc migraine. PubMed. Let's go look for the deficiencies now. Oh, I think this will be enough. Zinc supplementation affects favorably the frequency of migraine attacks. A double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled clinical trial. It's got all the magic words. Okay, so they gave them zinc and they saw their migraine frequency go down. Imagine that. Why would it, don't use too much zinc, it'll ruin your copper. No, don't listen to those people. Let's go do selenium migraine. Oh, I forgot to put in serum. PubMed. Protective effects of riboflavin and selenium on brain microsomal calcium 2+ ATPase and oxidative damage caused by glycerol trinitrate in a rat headache model. Okay, so that's a start on selenium. Let's see if there's anything else. I can't help you right now. Who are you looking for? Oh my gosh. Okay, hold. I'll be right there. Sorry, folks. This is live. I got to go take a package delivery. I'll be right back. Okay. So that was joy of joys. That was actually my delivery of the next batch of lactoferrin supplement. So they got to put a pallet of boxes in my front driveway. So yeah, they charge a lot if they have to come back. So I did not want to miss that. So yeah, sorry, it's live. Had to go. Anyway, so back to selenium. Let's see. Here we have this paper, the serum oxidative stress biomarkers and selenium levels in a group of migraine patients compared with healthy controls, a case control study. Not the double-blind placebo. So the severity of headache was assessed with a standard questionnaire, and the serum levels of selenium, malondialdehyde, and total antioxidant capacity were measured via biochemical methods. Okay. Migraine patients had a significantly lower selenium levels and a significantly higher malondialdehyde levels compared to healthy participants. What do we talk about here, folks? Do we talk about malondialdehyde as a very bad thing? Yeah. Do we talk about selenium deficiency as a problem? Yeah. Do I measure them? Do I measure selenium to fix it? Yeah. Both. I mean, I do hair for selenium. Zinc, we do both hair and blood. So we're not going to find anything on molybdenum. I'm going to go look anyway. Well, let me go look at this. Somebody wrote an article. I just want to see if he has any research on this. I'm looking at the references. He wrote My Crash Course in Molybdenum, and it's a website called mineralsformigraines.com. Oh, this person. Oh, yes. Yeah. I want to find references. This is a person who thinks that hair tests show everything possible, and yeah. Oh, she does say here, I have many clients that cannot eat garlic or onions without it triggering a migraine. How would that work, Dr. Smith? Dr. Smith would say sulfur slows down your ALDH. ALDH is aldehyde dehydrogenase. Just so happens that ALDH is what processes aldehydes like malondialdehyde. And I just showed you that migraine people had higher malondialdehyde levels. And so if you had somebody who was tending towards higher malondialdehyde levels and they eat the highest sulfur foods out there, it would slow down their ALDH. They would build up more malondialdehyde. Does this all make sense? And then she says, I started thinking about my past history being triggered by migraine with red wines because they add sulfite to red wines. Folks, sulfur slows down detox. Don't let anybody tell you different. It doesn't mean we eat no sulfur. Like meat contains sulfur, but the plant sulfurs are the worst. Okay? I just wanted to see. God, this person's so copper toxic. This is not useful. Ugh. People who completely just ruin hair test analyses. It's just awful. Yeah, so I don't see anything on let's go look at magnesium. Why don't we go do magnesium? Another thing that we work on strongly. Here's a paper. Magnesium is an important factor in the pathogenesis and treatment of migraine from theory to practice. Let's see. At the same time, many clinicians believe that magnesium supplementation, the right dose and form, hey, that's important, can be a treatment to prevent migraine attacks, especially in those patients who have identified contraindications to standard medications or their different preferences. Okay, so if you don't want to take poison, you have a different preference. If you don't want to take drugs, you're not being inclusive. I hope you catch the mockery. It also seems interesting to deepen the research on the administration of high doses of magnesium intravenously during migraine attacks. Apparently, magnesium has been observed to help migraines, and they're even pushing it in the vein, straight in the vein. Okay, so obviously that's connected. Let's go look up potassium while we're at it. So I'm going to put the search here. So those of you who want to look it up, you can see. So how important is potassium in migraine? So we have, I'm just going to read parts of these titles. ATP sensitive potassium channels in migraine. Involvement of potassium channel signaling in migraine. Oh, I didn't even go over vitamin A and headaches. Anyway, here's a paper. Is there a relationship between dietary sodium and potassium intake and clinical findings of a migraine headache? Let's see if they have anything here. They're not really saying anything about potassium. They say they're looking at potassium. They're saying a higher 24-hour urine sodium level was positively associated with a longer duration of migraine headaches and a higher MHIS, which is migraine headache index score. So, too much sodium could also imply that there's not enough potassium relative to it. Okay. I'll tell you that if you look at all the migraine drugs, they affect potassium channels. What I'm going to tell you that vitamin A does, vitamin A blocks potassium channels. Weird that they give drugs that affect potassium channels to help with migraine, and vitamin A will block potassium channels. Copper depletes potassium. Vitamin D supplements deplete potassium. Too much sodium can be a problem. Don't salt your food like a dumbass. Like, don't just put tons and tons of salt on your food. Like, we need salt, but don't be obnoxious about it. You'll cause yourself some problems. Let's see. Oh, vitamin A toxicity. Just go. I'm not going to spend much time on this because this is so obvious. Vitamin A, idiopathic intracranial hypertension. Okay. What do those words mean put together? Idiopathic means they don't know what caused it. Intracranial, inside of the skull. Hypertension, excess pressure. Excess pressure inside of the skull that they don't know what caused it or what, why it's happening. Does that sound like a headache to you? Like, this is headache. My head is pounding. What do you think's going on in your head? Too much pressure inside your skull, okay? It's also called pseudotumor cerebri. And here's the very first link from the paper. Role of vitamin A metabolism. They like to call it vitamin A toxicity metabolism. Role of vitamin A metabolism in idiopathic intracranial hypertension results from the idiopathic intracranial hypertension treatment trial. Let me read the first line. Vitamin A and its metabolites, called retinoids, have been thought to play a role in the development of idiopathic intracranial hypertension. Let's see. Okay, at study entry, you remember we were talking about retinoic acid earlier? At study entry of the vitamin A metabolites, only serum all-trans retinoic acid was significantly different in the headache subjects and controls. The BMI of idiopathic hypertension subjects showed mild, significant negative correlations with serum ATRA. There was more retinoic acid. They never measured retinoic acid in these studies. There was more retinoic acid in the headache people. And if you didn't know, this study is not good because they're like, oh, vitamin A has nothing to do with this. Vitamin A has been indicated with idiopathic intracranial hypertension. It's like a given. Just go look deeper in the research. My goodness. Oh, here we go. Drug-induced intracranial hypertension. Drug-induced intracranial hypertension. Here's the first sentence of it. Vitamin A derivatives. The first one they put. Vitamin A derivatives. Tetracycline class antibiotics, recombinant growth hormone, and lithium were found to be the most strongly associated with drug-induced intracranial hypertension. And the next paper is vitamin A induced benign intracranial hypertension. Vitamin A induced. Wait. We got to get this one. We got to read this first line. A case of benign intracranial hypertension. I'm sure the guy didn't think it was benign. A case of benign intracranial hypertension due to prolonged administration of a low dose of vitamin A is described in a young male investigated as a brain tumor suspect. The syndrome of benign intracranial hypertension and its relationship to chronic vitamin A toxicity is discussed. So, kind of like we did last week, we just kind of went through the big things that I tend to deal with in my people and things that are dealt with, as well as I can without testing in the Love Your Liver program, connecting it to migraines and headaches in general. The bile, selenium, zinc, vitamin A toxicity, all that stuff. Oh, ferritin didn't come through like we needed, but you don't have to have every single one of these. The pattern's not going to be the same every single time. It's not going to check every box because different conditions are caused by different recipes of things, whether it's the recipe of the bile or whether it's like excess selenium or not enough selenium or other things like that. Okay. We went over that. There was a little bit last week in the condition I went over. I don't even remember the condition I went over last week, but there was some studies that said there was too much selenium and some studies said it was not enough. More of them said not enough. But could you have too much? Yes. Okay. This is why supplementation is not a game. Okay. You can't just take mega doses of things and just think that just because it's a supplement and sold over the counter, that it's not going to be a problem. You could take a normal dose if you're one of the sensitive people and you could feel terrible. That doesn't mean the thing is bad. It means you're sensitive. Just think of like cars and trucks and their gas mileage, right? Certain cars can get a lot further on less gas versus the gas guzzling like giant trucks. They use tons of gas to go a little distance. They both use gas. One of them needs more and one of them needs less. Testing, and then watching your responses, which is what we do in terms of the testing and consultation packages I do. We test, and especially the very first time, I have people introduce these things slowly. Some people don't like it because they're impatient and they just want to jump ahead. And sometimes they jump ahead and they kick their own ass. And I go, well, you did it to yourself. And they go, yeah, I did. If you're going to be dumb, you better be tough. So if you want to skip how I tell you to do these things, you can do that. You can always do that. It's like when a parent says, the stove is hot, don't touch it. And then the child goes, I don't know if they're telling me the truth. I'm going to touch the stove. Ow, it's hot. Okay, I'm like, start these things slow. If you don't, you might kick your own ass. Some people listen, some people don't. So that's all I have for today. I got to get to my inner circle, which is inside the Love Your Liver. Well, it's inside the Nutrition Detective Network, which is where the Love Your Liver program is. That's where I'm going to go answer questions for probably another hour and a half, 2 hours, and I can be a bit more controversial than I am here. And we get into when you join the inner circle, you get unlimited questions. So anyway, thank you very much, folks, for your super chats. Hope the stuff I gave you today helps. Is there another one? Oh, Pierre's saying there's another super chat. Okay. Amirhan says, should I take zinc with copper? Because I started to take zinc picolinate and now I have this weird pulse in my hands. Maybe it is just dumping copper. You should reduce or stop taking the zinc because you are likely dumping copper. Correct. And whatever dose of zinc you took is too much for you right now. I want you folks to realize, like, this is when people work with me. And normally when people are working with me, I would have testing done and I would know. And then we also have the responses. I had somebody the other day just start taking selenium and molybdenum, and they started them both at the same time. And they started getting some itching. And they came to the office hours, which is my included follow-up for 6 months when people buy a package of testing with me. She came and she said, which one's causing the itching? And I said, I don't know. You started them both at the same time. I can't tell you which one did it. So what we did was we had her take a break for a couple days to wash it out. And then she started on the selenium. And she came to office hours just yesterday and said, the selenium, I'm up to 100 micrograms now, and there's no itching. I said, okay, cool. So we know that 100 micrograms of the selenium doesn't cause you itching. And she said, I'm going to add, more this coming week. And I was having her only add 50 micrograms per every 3 to 4 days. And I said, if you get itching at a certain level, you go back to the level that didn't cause the itching. Okay. This seems so, I know a lot of you out there will seem like, you'll be like, wow, this seems so obvious, but why don't practitioners do this? I don't understand. So then she's going to add in the molybdenum slowly. After she figures out the selenium by itself, she's going to introduce the molybdenum slowly. And she's going to do a 3-week introduction of the molybdenum. And I told her, I gave her very specific instructions with the molybdenum she was using, that if you get to the itching with the molybdenum, you're going to back off by 3 drops worth, 3 days worth of how she was going up in it. And then we're getting her the minerals that her testing needed, but we are not causing more symptoms. So with zinc, folks, if you are taking zinc picolinate, which is the only zinc I use, other than sometimes people with acid reflux problems, we might use zinc carnosine in addition, but we don't ever use any other zinc. They just don't work. Some of you out there may have been like, well, I took all these different types of zinc and I never felt anything. And then I took zinc picolinate and bam, something happened. I'm like, yeah, because the other zincs don't work. I'm just an observation. Yes. So Emirhan, if you took zinc and you don't feel good, back off. That's all you need to know. No, I'm not going to tell you what to take. Zinc supplements with copper in them in my house would go in the garbage. I would never supplement anyone with zinc unless I really, really didn't like them and I was not going to be a good boy. That's how I feel about zinc. Copper toxicity is a real thing. And so it's people think that zinc toxicity is easy to happen. No, it can happen. You get up around 100 milligrams of zinc or more a day and you take that for a while, you could definitely cause yourself zinc toxicity problems. But when you're taking a low dose of zinc and you're getting weird symptoms, it's dumping copper out of your liver. And that copper is going back into your blood. Let's just go do this real quick. And thank you for the super chat. I've done this search before. But yeah, no, I would not supplement copper. I would do less zinc. And here's the observation that we see with people who work with me for the long term. If they are sensitive to zinc at the start, and we don't push copper in foods, we don't push copper in supplements. So it should make sense that if copper deficiency was a legit thing, and we tend to use copper antagonists like zinc, like molybdenum, like selenium, and we don't emphasize copper in the diet, if copper deficiency was a legit thing, it should only get worse with my people, right? And they should get more and more symptoms over time, and they should be able to take less and less copper antagonists because their copper deficiency should be worsening over time. You want to know what we see? We see over time symptoms get better, and people who are really sensitive to zinc and molybdenum and selenium, any one of those or all of them at the start, over time they're able to tolerate more of them. So everything logic and pattern based says that copper is not that important. But in the early phases, if you take too much zinc for you at this time, you can make yourself feel bad by dumping either too much vitamin A out of your liver or too much copper out of your liver. So what do you do to fix it? You don't take that much vitamin A. While we're here, why don't I do a little product plug? Okay, you want to know what I did to help people who need a lower dose of zinc? I made a liquid zinc picolinate. The powder in water, you can't get as much zinc as I want people to get dissolved in that amount of water, but it is 2 milligrams per drop. So you need to shake it every time because it's kind of like milk of magnesia, where milk of magnesia is just a powder in water. Well, this liquid zinc picolinate is just a powder in water. So if you want to get an evenly distributed dose, you need to shake it every time. And it's 2 milligrams a drop. So instead of a 30 milligram pill where you either have to take the whole thing or you got to break up the powder, look like you're cutting lines on a table. If you don't want to do that, then the liquid works really well. So yeah. So that's how I'm the liquid zinc. It's a great product, and it makes, for people who are sensitive, if you're sensitive out there and you can't tolerate pills of zinc picolinate, the liquid zinc picolinate is an amazing product in terms of making that day-to-day thing easier. Can you always break up capsules and cut them into 15 pieces like my European client did so she could get the dose that helped her? Sure, you can do that. But the idea would be that right now for you, Amirhan, you're on too much for you right now. The solution is not to take copper unless you want to shut down everything. So that's my opinion on that. Oh, I really got to get going, folks. If you make any more super chats, I'm not going to get to them this week. I see the one from Mina, and this is the last one. So if you post another one, I'm not going to get to it this week. Hopefully Pierre will tell me and I can get to it next week. So I'm just making sure I didn't miss any. So Sarah, I hope you like that answer about the headaches. It's totally connected to what we're doing. Thank you for the super chats, and thank you Victoria, and thank you Ramon, and thank you Ryan, and thank you Israel. And we are down to, and thank you Amirhan, and then we've got Mina. Okay, why do probiotics increase vitamin A toxicity? I don't know what you mean by that. Now, think of what retinoic acid, vitamin A, as its vitamin A, retinoic acid. All trans retinoic acid is used as a chemical peel. It's called a yellow peel. You can look it up. There was a paper I have by a dermatologist who says we use chemical peels to induce controlled wounds in the skin. Vitamin A, the active form of vitamin A, is put on people's skin as a chemical peel to induce controlled wounds. They're basically dissolving your face skin. So imagine what this is doing inside your body. Okay. Now, probiotics can do a bunch of things. Probiotics can have alcohol dehydrogenase and aldehyde dehydrogenase. So they could technically turn vitamin A from the alcohol into the aldehyde into the retinoic acid. So they could increase it that way. Probiotics also have bile salt hydrolase, which cuts off things like taurines and glycines and sulfates from bile acids. So probiotics can change the recipe of your bile, and they could make it better. They could make it worse. Now, different people, your biome plays a huge role, biome being gut bacteria and what we think of as probiotics. You got to catch this, because this is exactly a chicken and the egg. It's not chicken or the egg, it's chicken and the egg. So if you make toxic bile, just as they were talking about in the fibromyalgia study, if you make toxic bile, it can go and then it could help certain bacteria in your gut grow, but it could also kill certain other ones. So the bile itself can change your gut biome. Now, your gut biome is what makes the most toxic secondary bile acids. So if you have bile come down and you have a messed up gut biome, your gut biome can take the bile you made and make it more toxic. And then you reabsorb it due to leaky gut and the normal enterohepatic circulation. And so those bile acids go right back up to your liver. And then you have toxic secondary bile acids going around your bloodstream. The toxic bile acids hurt your liver. They hurt everything, but they hurt your liver. And then you get slower detox. So then you become more toxic and your bile becomes more toxic. So this is like chicken and the egg. So when you hear on the internet, when you read somebody who said, how could probiotics increase vitamin A toxicity? Well, if you were to look up megaspore, I forget which bacillus it is, but one of these spore-forming bacteria that megaspore puts in their product, they brag about it making carotenoids. So there are probiotics out there that they are selling that the probiotics themselves make vitamin A. Don't do that. That'd be bad. So you could actually have probiotics that make vitamin A. Not recommended. Not recommended. That company disregarded my work entirely. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll still be here when you realize you're poisoned. So the bile salt hydrolase changes the recipe of the bile. The bile changes the bacteria in the gut, which then can change what is coming up. Different people have different needs. So I have several articles, multiple articles in the Love Your Liver program talking about probiotics, talking about putrefactive versus fermentative, and different types will tend to do better on different soluble fibers. Different types will tend to do better on different major probiotics, be it lactobacillus or bifido. People who are doing like super low carb diets or keto or all muscle meat carnivore are absolutely decimating their bifido populations, as an example. There's gender patterns. If you want to say sex, there's sex patterns in it, which don't care what you identify as. There's all sorts of stuff. So when you read on the internet, folks, if you read on the internet that I took this probiotic and it's the most amazing thing ever, okay, and then you might read just below that one another testimonial saying this person says, I took this probiotic and it gave me SIBO. Here's the best saying for it. This is not a game. If you have no idea what you're doing, then you have no idea what you're doing. Now, we're out here figuring out a whole new paradigm for medicine. Toxic bile theory. Are probiotics part of that? Yes. Could probiotics make your bile problem, which is distinctly involved in your health problems and vitamin A toxicity problems, could it make it worse? Sure. Could it make it better? Absolutely. That's where people get so confused about probiotics is, let's say you read the Amazon testimonials and you're like, great, disaster, great disaster. Like you're reading these testimonials and you're going, well, is this good or is it bad? It can be both. Most people cannot wrap their heads around that because nobody out there understands toxic bile theory. When you understand toxic bile theory, it both makes sense. So like that's why I'm saying we have the big probiotics section in the Love Your Liver network. Here's the thing about probiotics. If you take a probiotic, first of all, you can always start with less than a capsule. I have people start with, they get their pinky wet and they open up a capsule and they just get a little bit. I call it the pinky method. Probiotics are strong. If you get the wrong one, it's strong. It messes you up. So the less you take to begin with, it's called dose dependence. The less you're going to mess yourself up. It's just how it works. So if somebody feels terrible from the get-go on a probiotic, it's the wrong one. The sooner you stop it, the less damage you'll do. Don't just finish the bottle because you bought it. If you take a probiotic and you feel terrible, stop taking it. Now, here's the other thing, though. Probiotics are the only ones that I am okay with people feeling a little bad at the start. So if you take a probiotic, and let's say you notice some improvements, but you notice some other symptoms like gas, bloating, whatever. If you're like, well, I like the improvements. I noticed improvements, but there are these drawbacks. If over the next 2 weeks, if you're taking it, if the benefits are increasing or staying the same and the negatives are shrinking and going away, that's okay, because when we change the gut biome, things are going to get a little weird. You know, it's like a war between bacteria down there, and a war is going to have casualties, and there's going to be stuff dying off, and there's going to be stuff that, like, good bacteria may be growing, but then let's say there's all this stuff down there that needs the good bacteria to clean it up. So the good bacteria starts cleaning up. When you clean up stuff, what do you make? You make waste. And then you got to get rid of that waste, which may not feel good in your tummy. But the only way that I would say to continue on a probiotic is if over those first 2 weeks, you're noticing the benefits are growing and the negatives are going down. You may start with little more negatives and you notice some positives, but if you don't see it switching by 2 weeks, then it's not for you. So probiotics are a little different. Probiotics can have the biggest impact on your bile recipe the fastest via bile acid hydrolase and via the alcohol and aldehyde dehydrogenase that they add. Yeah. That's how it works. They don't make you, I mean, unless you're buying Megaspore or another company that sells, what was it? Bacillus. Let me look at it. I think it's Bacillus. Let's look at Bacillus vitamin A produce. Just see if we can find it quick. I think it's a Bacillus subtilis. I don't want to, it's not worth my time looking it up right now. So that's all I got for today. But they don't increase vitamin A toxicity unless you're taking one that makes vitamin A. Okay. So hope you all enjoyed it. Well, that was a long one. I got to get going. Have a great weekend. Sorry, I had to get up for a second. You know, that's doing stuff live. So I will see you all next week. Oh, wait, next week is going to be a time change, I believe. And just keep an eye out. We're going to be changing the time of the live stream for permanently for a while. Okay. So anyway, have a great weekend. I'll see you all next time. NutritionDetective.com. I'm Dr. Garrett Smith, the Nutrition Detective. We'll see you in the future. Bye now.